Hola, ¿cómo estás? And welcome back to another edition of John Ammo's Archive. So, I just put out a video a little while ago. I figured I was on a roll with this wrestling topic, and I had some stuff in my head that I wanted to talk about. So this video is going to be very specific, and it's going to focus on two subject matters. And this is kind of the stuff that I'm going to be doing going forward, just focusing on stuff like this. The first part is the controversial Owen Hart, Stone Cold, Steve Austin subject. Now, I don't know if everybody out there knows this, but or the whole story or how this whole thing went down, and certainly, you know, karma is a bitch because Steve Austin is not a 100% innocent party in this whole story as well. But, you know, looking back in history, I understand, you know, I was a fan of Owen Hart, don't get me wrong. I was more a fan of him because he was an antagonizer and because he was a good heel. But, you know, a lot of times, you know, Owen Hart, when we look back at him, he gets a little bit more of the angel nod than, you know, maybe he deserves. And, you know, no doubt a great wrestler, a very underrated wrestler. But definitely not the saint that, you know, everybody makes him out to be. He's definitely, you know, definitely was a controversial, you know, figure himself. A lot of that got swept under the carpet. You know, not too much controversy, but enough where, you know, the reason why, just so everybody knows how I'm painting this whole picture and where I'm drawing this together, is the reason why Steve Austin is no longer wrestling. And the reason why Steve Austin's last match against The Rock in WrestleMania 19 was because Owen Hart dropped Steve Austin on his head. And make no mistake about it, he dropped him on his head. The injuries, you know, took a toll on his neck and his spine. And, you know, the wear and tear eventually basically made his neck jelly. And if, you know, Stone Cold takes another serious bump ever again, you know, his career would be in jeopardy. So, you know, people say, well, accidents happen. It's wrestling, you know. Look at D'Lo Brown and Droz, truly a tragic accident right there as he was performing one of his signature maneuvers. However, I can't find, and this is a real shame because I was going to bring it out here. I got everybody else's book down here that I could find. I got Hulk Hogan, Mankind, even got Chyna's book, and I can't find Steve Austin's book. But anyway, in Steve Austin's book, it's a very interesting read in that the months leading up to SummerSlam, there was actually a lot of concern about this pile driver because Steve Austin kind of knew Owen Hart's reputation of being kind of a jokester, kind of, you know, a little bit of a secret loose cannon, if I may say. And Steve Austin, in his book, describes having a conversation with Owen Hart about, you know, there's two ways you can deliver a pile driver. The much safer way is the traditional way that many of you youngsters have seen it nowadays, with The Undertaker dropping on his knees and doing the tombstone. It's much safer because you're dropping on your knees. You can control it a lot more. Back in the day, and the signature that I remember growing up on was Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff. They would literally drop butt first, not being able to really control the force and the momentum going down into the mat. And let me tell you, Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff, not only did he never lose a locker room fight ever to anybody, including beating up Vader, but Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff had the most wicked pile driver. It put the Undertakers to shame. It's not even close. Like, it looked like it broke your neck every time. That said, there was some, and at this time, it was 1997, there was no rules in the Federation regarding pile drivers. You know, they were still you know, fair game, and there was no regulations against them. Steve Austin, very concerned about Owen Hart dropping to his butt, has this conversation in the weeks leading up to SummerSlam with Owen Hart numerous times about, hey, Owen, you're going to drop to your knees, right? And then Owen Hart would joke back with him and say, ha ha ha, no, I'm going to drop to my I'm going to drop to my ass. I'm going to land on my ass. I'm going to give you that one. And you read Steve Austin's book if you know, if anybody has any questions about this. And up until the night of the event where Steve Austin again approaches Owen Hart in the dressing room, hey, make sure when you do the pile driver on me that you drop on your knees. Of course, as he leaves the dressing room, Owen Hart has to get his last, funny little remark in there that, no, I'm going to drop on my ass. Well, sure enough, they're having a great match. 15 minutes in, Owen Hart picks him up for the pile driver, and clear as day, with any disregard for his safety, and I'm going to get into this something else in a second, dropped ass first, spiked Steve Austin's head and neck into the canvas in one of the most reckless pile drivers with no regard for another person's safety that I've ever seen in my entire life. Ever seen. And then, the rest is history. Owen Hart, Steve Austin's neck becomes progressively worse. Unfortunately, he starts to suffer stingers. Thank God he can perform one last match against The Rock in WrestleMania. And obviously Steve Austin's pissed off. We as a fan base get robbed of, 5, 6, 7 more years of Steve Austin in his prime. So that's certainly a shame. And FYI, as if he didn't learn his lesson, in the next year on Monday Night Raw, he dropped to his ass again, and he did the same exact thing to Steve Blackman, who couldn't get up in the ring and suffered, some kind of injury. And so, I just wanted to come out here and paint a clear picture that, a lot of times they say, like, oh, Owen Hart was the greatest guy, and he was this and he was that. And, he was a good guy, I'm sure. He's a good family man. But, there was a little sinister of a side to Owen Hart, and I almost have to question, why? Why did... And so, by the way, he still never apologized, to Steve Austin to this day. Unfortunately, Owen Hart, had his own tragedy, and maybe we'll get into another video about that some other time. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he never apologized for the incident, and it's ironic because when I say Steve Austin isn't a complete innocent party member in the whole thing, turns out that in 1991 in Japan, when Steve Austin still had hair and he was known as Stunning Steve, he did the exact same thing to Janisho Tenyo, I forgot the guy's name, but a Japanese wrestler who broke his neck. So all is fair in love and war, I suppose. But I just wanted to paint a clearer picture on that subject. And so finally, I did want to get into the mismanagement a little bit more of the Brock Lesnar contract since he's signed up with the WWF, and I just want to, I got into it a little bit in my last video, and I didn't really properly give it enough time. And, I'm a huge Brock Lesnar fan. I admire the guy for everything he's done, for trying to, even his NFL tryout that wasn't successful, the fact that he even attempted to do something like that and wasn't that bad at doing it, became the UFC champion. This guy was at a level of, a whole different level of any superstar that was in that locker room, a year ago. And, obviously you guys, they paid him so much money, and I've just never seen, like, you have a limited amount of dates for Brock Lesnar. So let me just tell you guys, this is, again, how I would have, if I brought in Brock Lesnar, and I'm going to even give you this. If I brought in Brock Lesnar, he would never have lost to John Cena ever, period. It just wouldn't happen. I might even consider making him the face of the company, and the reason why, everybody's speculative about this and nobody's sure about his attitude towards wrestling is because, nobody's ever sat down with the guy and looked at him eye to eye and been like, hey, Brock, we're going to give you the keys. Are you bought in? Like, they haven't had a real conversation. They don't know how to talk to this guy, clearly. It's obvious. Neither did Dana White in the UFC, but how I would have booked Brock Lesnar, and again, I'll give you the John Cena win. I would have, Extreme Rules. I would have had him come out there his first match and had him crushed Sheamus. Absolutely destroyed Sheamus, right? Then maybe the next night on Raw, he comes out there for an interview. I'm going to take on all comers, blah, 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 blah. Nobody can beat me, yada, yada, yada. So then, maybe you don't see him again because he has limited appearances. You bring Paul Heyman out there. You do some clips and some things like that, and then you book him 2-3 months more down the road against Triple H. Now, say SummerSlam, and then you have him, absolutely crush Triple H because he should. And then the same with CM Punk. And then if you want to lead the story, the build up, and all the meanwhile he's mentioning John Cena. But John Cena's playing him off because he's too busy with The Rock. He's too busy with with CM Punk, with everybody else, that he's not really paying attention to him until one day Lesnar comes out there and makes him pay attention, just kicks Cena's ass. You build it up. See, this is how you build up a story. You do it, you bring it in, and you could plant these seeds from the day he comes in. Like the day he comes in, he's mentioning Cena. Cena keeps ignoring him, yada, 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 yada. The fact that you guys blew your wad, and this is what they do with every single wrestler, with every single angle, with every single... There's no more build-up anymore. There's no more... there's no more... It's always, we have a deadline. We have to get the next rating on this show. We have to get the next buy rate on this pay-per-view. There's no more drama. There's nothing. So, I just, it's unimaginable to me how you guys have literally made, by the time, like I said, the 1000th Raw came around, and you had Steve Austin there, and you had The Rock in there, and everybody was there. Brock Lesnar was just another guy. He was just another guy. When he should have been the star of that show. You should have been, focusing the whole show around Brock Lesnar. So that's how I would have booked Brock Lesnar anyway. So anyway, this is the kind of stuff. There's not going to be any Raw reviews, no SmackDown reviews. We're going to talk about stuff like this going forward. This is John Ammo from the archives, and thanks for watching.